A lot of cool stuff has happened in the track and field world since the Olympics. Mondo Duplantis broke his own world record in the pole vault. Josh Kerr and Carissa Schweizer rode their Olympic fitness to Fifth Avenue mile wins. Mary Moraa set a world best over 600 meters, and Emmanuel Wanyonyi got even closer to David Rudisha's 800-meter world record. But when it came to the Diamond League final at the Memorial Van Damme meet in Brussels, Belgium, it was a bit of a snooze fest, to be honest. Maybe it was the cool temperatures slowing down the winning sprint times. It certainly didn't help that a lot of Olympic champs skipped the meet entirely. And the biggest self-inflicted wound of all was relegating Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone to the B races to adhere to the letter of the law in the Diamond League rulebook. But the net effect was that 5 weeks after the last medals were handed out in Paris, Kenny Bednarek finally taking down Letsile Tebogo over 200 meter, Beatrice Chebet clocking her second 14 minutes and 9 seconds in 2 weeks, and the return of Femke Bol were all thrilling moments. And last year's incredible showcase at the Prefontaine Classic showed that the Diamond League final can be one of the best track meets of the year. But it's just as apparent that while Brussels featured all the right ingredients, it takes the right recipe and preparation to cook up a truly delicious meal. If Sprint Spotlight was in charge of next year's Diamond League final, here are a few common sense changes we'd implement. Time the final just right. In a perfectly structured track and field schedule, the season ends with the biggest championship. There's a reason they don't keep playing baseball games after the World Series. 6 Diamond League events following the Olympics is, quite frankly, at least 5 too many. The good news is that next year, the Diamond League final precedes Worlds. The bad news is that the biggest stars may very well skip the meet to focus on the big kahuna. The Diamond League final does offer something championship races don't: the ability to optimize conditions, fields, and pacers to translate championship fitness into blazing fast times. If the Diamond League final wants to maximize impact irrespective of Worlds, it should aim to take place around 2 weeks after the end of a global championship, so athletes have the chance to rest and reset, but don't have to restructure their whole training cycle around a double peak. Similarly, Diamond League organizers should be realistic about where and when fast times come easy. Temperatures in the 50s aren't unusual for a September evening in Belgium. So why are we asking sprinters to circle a meet on the calendar that's statistically unlikely to produce their best results? There are undoubtedly many considerations league organizers have to balance in designing the Diamond League schedule. But for the final, the greatest emphasis should be on picking a fast track during a period of great weather. Incentivize fun over formality. Last week's Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone drama exposed some key flaws in the Diamond League system. In an effort to incentivize year-long participation in the circuit, athletes must earn a spot in the final via points accumulated in regular season competition. Which makes sense, right? You don't want to create a scenario where the best athletes can skip out on appearances, then show up and take all the money. Unless, of course, your goal is for the last meet to have the biggest names and be the most exciting. You see the struggle here. Similarly, the 2 dangled prize carrots, a $30,000 first prize, and a wildcard entry into Worlds in 2 weeks, may incentivize the top athletes to show up, but also act as a deterrent to risk-taking. With the Diamond League final leading into Worlds next year, it's unlikely any major contenders would need to secure a bye, particularly if doing so would mean burning off a hard effort. In short, league rules are well structured to create high-quality races all season long, but not necessarily fireworks in its finale. But if the final is to truly be an added draw for potential viewers, it might be worth bending the existing rules to create fun storylines. One way to mix things up would be to pilot the possibility of allowing qualified athletes to float across different events, should they choose. If Letsile Tebogo qualified for the 200-meter final but wants to run the 400-meter, let him! This will inevitably piss off the first man out of the 400-meter final, but creates an interesting narrative for everyone else. It would have been much more fun to see a rematch between Beatrice Chebet and Faith Kipyegon, the 5,000-meter gold and silver medalists from Paris, than to watch them win their respective events by huge margins. And then there's the possibility of a Sydney rule, letting a world champ who hasn't run on the circuit all season into the final in an event of their choosing. It could reinforce. At this point, we'd rather bend the rules for a special few than force them into a qualification straitjacket they'll inevitably find a way to wriggle out of. Here, it's important to recognize that the Diamond League is not world athletics. Its goal is to maximize the impact and revenue from its suite of meets, not to grow the sport as a whole. And as it currently stands, the Diamond League needs stars more than stars need the Diamond League. We're generally big fans of the Peacock broadcasts of professional track and field. The platform is comparatively cheap, easy to find, and lets you watch every episode of Parks and Recreation. For your average run-of-the-mill Diamond League taking place mid-afternoon in America on a Friday, maximizing streaming eyeballs are about the best you can aim for. But if athletes, organizers, and promoters are going to invest the extra time and money into making the final a can't-miss event, it really should be on television as close to prime time as possible. Now, with time zones, broadcast rights, and the Flottrack-sized elephant in the room, this is probably the least realistic and achievable change the Diamond League could make, at least in the short term. But if we're supposed to buy into the idea that the Diamond League final is a championship, and not just the penultimate stop on the schedule, it really should be marketed as such. And the bump in viewership that comes from a television broadcast on even the lower-tier channels is worth chasing. Like so many parts of track and field, the Diamond League final is facing something of an identity crisis right now. Is it a standalone exhibition or a cog in a year-long machine? Is its existence dependent on its proximity to championships, or is it a meet with its own intrinsic value? Should it prioritize a standardized racing format or attention-grabbing gimmicks? As it battles the continued pressure to counter-program the Olympics and new competition from Grand Slam track, the league will have to decide if it wants to play up its strengths or address its weaknesses. It's hard, if not impossible, to do both. Let us know in the comments what you would change about the Diamond League finals.